So the piece I composed in this project was called The Silent Songs of Josephine, and it's a 20 minutes long song cycle. And I engage with in this piece. um I wrote this piece for soprano and piano predominantly, but in addition to that, I use um, uh, ready-made objects in addition to electronic components for this work. And Franz Kafka, in his life, especially with this his short story, um, Josephine the Singer and the Mass Folk, um, we have a concern about his losing voice. I learned about how he actually suffered his lifetime, about his uh, lung disease that he was actually lost his life. So that influenced me, especially to consider about voice and silence in that terms. So I made a collaboration with University of Tokyo to use their award-winning electrolarynx project of which is called Syrinx project of Masaki Takeuchi is in leading that. So I incorporate technology like that in this composition in addition to those ready-made objects to generate a completely new world in this song cycle. Josephine, I sometimes call Josephine interchangeably. Uh, it's a very symbolic story, actually. It's his last story, Franz Kafka's last story before he passed away. And um, that story is actually about a singer, mass folk, how how Kafka actually identifies about it, other than human personhood, and surrounded with the idea of other than human personhood, a different society that is quasi-human, quasi mass people. And Josephine actually is a very special person in that civilization as a established, amazing, virtuoso singer. But we never hear her voice really in the story because it is narrated. And that really impressed me about the Kafka's understanding of what sound and surrounding with the virtuosic, understanding of performance, but at the same time, a sound that cannot be obtained in this real life. We can only imagine with the, amazing strength and expression of Franz Kafka. And especially um, when I look at Kafka's stories, especially shortest stories with this perspective of Kafka as a composer, I really excavated from his world of narration, something like very special, very sonically physical world that is he's working exactly like a composer. So this is why I situate this piece, Silent Songs of Josephine, as a frame for myself, and I really created a new world that is not really, we found in his actually full scale in his publications. He has like a collection, and I decided like to create a sonic world of Franz Kafka, particularly creating this idea of the sounds that we cannot really hear, but we can really subtly, if we give our ears to them, slowly actually develop this idea of like a different kind of um, musical world that we are freshly, organically, in today's world that we can give our ears. So that was my main idea about um, situating the frame of Franz Kafka's last story and thinking about like entire his world of and his history of his life, the short story writing and his way of engaging with the fresh sounds that he's imagining or probably hearing. That's what I want to say. The piece was framed by especially engaging with and starting with the Josephine's story, but I tried to especially use that full duration. The pieces that short stories, especially Franz Kafka's short stories, that he's using a lot of complex sound world. He's um, utilizing in different kind of ways, and I can tell that I created short sections from, except probably investigations of dog. I predominantly utilize from all the stories that he's mentioning about like hearing complex sounds and voices, especially, and certain phenomenon such as burrow is one central actually focus, um, kind of like this paranoid hearing, you know. Um, um, yeah, predominantly actually I try to use all the Kafka's uh, short stories that includes complex sounds. I think I found Burrow is a very special piece of Kafka. And I really feel about that's a two section for me, you know. Of course, we can find it's not that simple to me. And but for musically, like almost like the durational I'm thinking. I hear a very special in the towards the end of the story, um, an anechoic chamber phenomenon that exists, you know, in pure silence, which is impossible to create in the world. And when all the senses are really just focused on sound, vision is completely potentially blacked out when we do not know full scale. The creature in full isolation that Kafka writes, which we do not know full scale what is that creature is that really a human, or is it transformed human, or is it a mole or some kind of a ground animal? We start to develop this understanding of some the sounds that were probably there but not there maybe previously, but awareness of that. So it's a consciousness that develops towards some sort of a physical and psychological uh, modes, and it completely shapes the reality of that creature's presence in the full scale, the environment that creature created through his or her life. And that's a very special, I think, for any composer or anyone who really uh, engage with sound and imagination together. I think that is a very special, we can call discovery or creation, you know, and that's a very central one of the aspects that I really focus on when I imagine Kafka's physical world. Does Franz Kafka's sound world, soundscape, or music related to art today is a very central question, actually, for me. But beyond the question and answering, the beauty of art is, especially when we work with sonic arts, it answers, but it creates more problems for us to engage with that. So I think my role in this project, especially, go really deep into that. Imagine that not many, I haven't um, encountered, especially in literature yet, in sound literature, I'm of course talking about predominant, as well as, you know, the scholarship, of course, they're beautiful, amazing literature exists. Um, I really engage with this idea that like a rhizome in burrow, you know, not simply something like this is the soundscape or taxonomy of soundscapes or musicality, which is one of the central question I know is that Kafka's referral to himself as he is not musical. But in his time, there's a historical gap between me as a living composer right now and Kafka to me as a composer who is imagining his time, you know. That historicity have some kind of uh, I think a pitfall for a lot of us who are living right now, which is the musicality and what the music is supposed to be, or is it supposed to be something at all? I think I really push these questions and make like a soundscape, the musicality of Kafka and physicality of Kafka, all this imagination between the physical touch of sound, the vibration, and the predetermination of the what the music's supposed to be is my key realm the domain that I try to create in this piece, you know. And I think that is for me the most exciting and unique contribution that Kafka to the sound world that he did, you know. So the composition was, uh, the commission was, especially for Oxford International Song Festival, was for voice and piano, and it's actually song cycle. And what I did was engaging with this idea of song cycle and creating a parallel between me and Kafka's historicity between us and song cycle, the historicity between me as a person who creates many different, expressions for voice, text, and song cycle. I created this new dramatic form. Actually, it's inspired by um, a almost slowly fading away theatrical form meta. It's like with quick character changes. One solo person acts on many different character changes. So that was my main idea about drama that I create. And meta is generally commedia, but I use this in a series style. So that led me to also explore the physicality beyond the serene definition of voice and singability in song cycles that we encountered, especially in history. And I worked on, especially with collaboration with other scientists, especially University of Tokyo's project Syrinx and led by Masaki Takeuchi. They're working on electrolarynx that is giving people with medical conditions voice, and they use machine learning components with that instrument. And I tried to reimagine and incorporate this Kafka's hidden sound world with these technological applications to this piece as well, to make it more like a dramatic and create the extension of the voice from itself rather than like preconditioning what song cycle is supposed to be or like what the drama of Kafka should be. It's not only the using the technology to change the human voice, but also I'm applying that to some objects because when we apply them, those objects are resonating in a different way. So for instance, I use some pipes, with this instrument that I was talking about, and it creates some kind of different fresh sounds out of that. And I use other ready-made objects and instruments such as magnetic EBOs to create higher harmonics. And especially when I was working on this piece, I really worked on the concept of Franz Kafka's process and transformation a lot. And for harmonic, because it was for piano and we had a limited access to using the instruments inside, especially, which I'm very familiar to, I decided to create a harmonic language based out of paradoxes and auditory illusions. So these instruments are actually allowing me to create a very complex sounds that are in a very practical way as well. So the Silent Songs of Josephine was a special project for me. I think it's definitely a continuation of what I'm doing in the many years, you know, uh, engaging with extended harmonies, paradoxes, transformation. How can um, music can go further for myself? It's a challenge for me, or I'm really strive for to contribute to the world. In fact, it's actually in that um, continuation. It is definitely a place, a milestone for me because one special occasion in this case, I really like Franz Kafka's narration, his techniques, and what he creates conceptually. And this time it came together and it's not detached. I really actually make something really new potential out of actually his dramatic curves that I have never seen inside of his work, but it is really his work, but also I find myself in it that I make the libretto, all the scenarios that we are creating. It's great dialogue between Kafka and me. This is why it's a special work for me. My engagement with Franz Kafka has a long story, but especially when we start to do this project, um, previously before this, before my engagement, University of Oxford and the team, Kafka research team. I composed a couple of pieces on Franz Kafka. One of them was on Odradek. It was really an exciting project for me. But with this project, I really actually worked on a research program, and I engaged with especially Franz Kafka's manuscripts in Bodleian archives, and with you as and other members of the team, we had that dialogue. Really developed a different kind of understanding of Kafka to um, put my research findings to my creative, ideas with Kafka in a different level, of definitely an excellence, which I was looking for, because I think he also deserves, especially like translation, looking at the physical, materials, how he engaged with the physicality of the paper in today's conditions, when he is actually ending his certain words, and when he is Kafka, uh, drawing some pictures, which order that he's putting, when he's, making a scratch. These are the things that it's impossible for, to find out without touching those materials. And with actually the surrounding with that Kafka experts like you and, um, all that Oxford team, it's made a completely special, I think, timeline. It took about like 1.5 year, 2 years full scale to develop a very, very unique project, in my opinion. And I think it's really made me bring me to new projects that I'm actually continuing and thinking about the uh, prepare this piece for larger, longer, and different kind of setups that with Kafka and how, with Kafka's works are informed. I think Franz Kafka was an exceptional figure when I remember the literature that's been uh, done on his life, work, technique, subjects, identity. And I see that it's since his time, he is continuously shaping the society that we are living in. Um, but especially when I start to think about your work, attention, distraction. And today's the direction that humanity is going. The definition of post-human, not simply like after human or extension of human or redefinition of human. I think Franz Kafka, beyond what is a author, of course he's an author and a fantastic one, as a full-scale artist, a thinker, a unique, personality, says a lot for us to really little bit slow down, give our ears, but this time with our eyes, and reimagine what is possible. And I think it is exceptionally important when this technology and technological developments are upon us and spread quickly and fasten every single day. And it's really important to me to understand not only with Kafka, but to be able to open the world that Kafka's world that is providing us to imagine and listen. This is, I think, probably I can tell, rather than like saying what we should do, but probably what we should not do is hidden in Kafka's stories that I believe. I think that's why I called silence. Generally, people always associate with silence with John Cage in the so-called, I don't want to say Western, but still it's there, Western literature and reading or imagination or creation. Um, but we live in a globe that is exceptionally rich, diverse, different, with similarities that we really need to actually reconsider as soon as possible, that if we want to continue things in the right way, that I believe as a creator. So this is why I think concept of the silence supposed to be, in my opinion, reconsidered again for all of us for the next actually direction as humanity is healing right now. And I just try to be giving a little bit contribution to that, to ask questions. All I am doing that.